Cowboys Nation, buckle up. This one's gonna sting and inspire at the same time. Tonight in Arlington, under the bright lights, Dallas and Green Bay delivered a showdown for the ages, a shootout that ended in a 40-40 OT tie. It wasn't supposed to end this way, but this is the NFL, and on nights like this, legends are born in chaos. Let me lay out the carnage. Dak Prescott, under center, put together a vintage performance. 31 of 40, 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw darts. He made plays. He kept the offense alive when defenses were gunning for him. Meanwhile, George Pickens stepped up in a huge way. With CD Lamb out injured, the Cowboys leaned on Pickens, and he answered. 8 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's stepping into the spotlight and demanding respect. Javonte Williams ground out yards on the ground and scored a touchdown, keeping balance in an offense that could have tipped too far toward the air. But the story isn't just the offense. Dallas special teams made a massive impact. When Green Bay tried to extend in the first half, the Cowboys blocked a PAT and returned it for 2 points, swinging momentum when the game teetered. And on defense, well, it's complicated. After losing Micah Parsons in a shocking offseason trade to Green Bay, the Cowboys' pass rush and defensive consistency have looked shaky. They've allowed big yards in the secondary. They've been exposed in moments. The loss of Parsons hurt more than many realized. But to their credit, tonight they held when it mattered. When Green Bay had the ball trailing 40-37 in OT, they forced only a field goal instead of letting it get tragic. Now here's where the drama gets darker. The final Green Bay play in overtime, when the Packers had the ball with time winding down, Dak Prescott called it weird. He said it felt funny, and he's not alone. Broadcasters were questioning alignment, clock management, penalties, whether a 10-second runoff should have ended the game earlier. The sequence looked messy, some of it by design, some perhaps by error. But at the end, Green Bay got the 34-yard field goal to knot it 40-40. Let's be real, ties suck. They leave you hanging, unsatisfied. But within that tie lies a beacon for what Dallas can be. This isn't collapse, it's a foundation. Dak showed he can still lead big time. Pickens proved he's not just a name, but a difference maker. The defense, sans Parsons, showed grit under pressure. Special teams flipped the script. This game, as wild and contradictory as it was, gave Dallas more than a tie. It gave hope. Yes, there are mistakes. Yes, the defense has holes. Yes, the Parsons trade hurts night after night. But at 1-2-1, the Cowboys still have time. They're in the mix. They still carry the torch of expectation, history, and legacy. The Packers matchup revived a rivalry, asked big questions, and forced Dallas to answer them under fire. The Cowboys answered, not with perfection, but with character. And sometimes, character wins the war long before the score finalizes. So here's the call. We don't walk away discouraged. We walk away engaged, energized, demanding more. Because the Cowboys deserve better than a tie. They deserve greatness. And I believe in the guys. I believe in Dak. I believe in Pickens. I believe in what's coming. What's your take, fan base? Was that tie a moral victory or missed chance? Do we push defense harder in practice this week? Who steps up next? Drop your thoughts below. If you believe in this team, smash that like button and make sure you subscribe to Dallas Game Day, because this ride is just getting started.